the boy of the dust and the stars. Once upon a time, in a village tucked between jagged mountains and a river that ran dry every summer, lived a boy named Leo. Leo's home was not a house of brick or stone, but a small shack made of salvaged wood and rusted tin. His father was a weary laborer, and his mother spent her days mending the torn clothes of the wealthy families on the hill. In Leo's village, success was measured by how much wheat you could harvest or how many goats you owned. But Leo had a different dream, one that seemed impossible given his circumstances. Leo wanted to build machines. The spark in the scrapyard. While other children played games in the dust, Leo spent his afternoons at the village junkyard, a ravine where the nearby town dumped its broken treasures. To anyone else, it was trash. To Leo, it was a library of possibilities. He would find a rusted gear here, a frayed copper wire there, and a cracked magnifying glass buried under a heap of tires. He kept a tattered notebook found in a puddle and dried in the sun where he drew diagrams of things that didn't yet exist. One day, the village elders mocked him. "Leo, why do you waste your strength dragging heavy iron when you could be helping your father in the fields? A boy like you will always have dirt under his nails. It's better to accept it." Leo looked at his grease-stained hands and then at the shimmering stars above the mountains. "The dirt is only on my hands," he whispered to himself. "It isn't in my heart." The Great Drought. When Leo was 14, the Great Drought arrived. The river didn't just run low, it vanished. The crops withered into brittle stalks, and the goats grew thin. The village was in despair. The nearest well was 10 miles away, and the walk was grueling under the blistering sun. Leo knew this was his moment. For years, he had been tinkering with a design for a wind-powered pump. He had the gears, he had the blades he'd hammered out of old oil drums, and he had the knowledge he'd taught himself by reading discarded textbooks. He worked for 3 weeks straight, barely sleeping. He faced constant odds. 1. Lack of tools. He had to use sharp stones to cut wire. 2. Doubt. The neighbors told him he was playing with toys while the village died. 3. Failure. His first 3 versions of the pump collapsed under their own weight. On the 22nd day, a massive dust storm rolled in. Just as the wind began to howl, Leo tightened the final bolt on his contraption atop the old village well. The blades began to spin. Crank, clunk, wheeze. Suddenly, a gurgle rose from deep within the earth. A spray of cool, clear water erupted from the pipe, splashing into the dry troughs. The village was saved. The rise to the top. The news of the boy inventor spread beyond the mountains. A benefactor from a prestigious university heard of the boy who built a life-saving machine out of trash. Leo was offered a full scholarship to study engineering in the great city of Oakhaven. Leaving was the hardest thing he had ever done. As he climbed into the carriage, his father handed him a small pouch of soil from their garden. "Never forget the ground you walked on, Leo." In the city, Leo was an outsider. The other students wore silk vests and used gleaming silver tools. They laughed at his calloused hands and his thick accent. They called him the scrappy boy. But Leo didn't grow bitter. Instead, he worked harder than anyone else. While others went to parties, Leo stayed in the labs, perfecting designs for affordable energy and clean water systems. Years passed, and Leo became the most famous engineer in the land. He held patents for inventions that powered entire cities. He moved into a beautiful home and wore fine suits. By all worldly standards, he had made it. The return. One evening, while sitting at a grand banquet held in his honor, Leo looked at his reflection in a silver spoon. He saw a successful man, but then he looked at his hands. Even though they were clean now, he remembered the feeling of the grease and the grit of the junkyard. He realized that his success wasn't meant for him alone. The next week, Leo did something that shocked the city. He packed his bags, resigned from his high-paying corporate board, and returned to the village between the jagged mountains. He didn't return to show off his wealth. He returned to work, the legacy of the humble. Leo used his fortune to build the Leo Institute of Innovation right on the edge of the old junkyard. He didn't build it for scientists from the city. He built it for the children of the village. He built a school where every child could learn for free. He installed a massive irrigation system that ensured the village would never go thirsty again. He built a factory that employed the local parents, paying them fair wages so their children didn't have to work in the fields unless they chose to. Leo lived in a modest house, much like the one he grew up in, though it was sturdier and warmer. He could often be found in the Institute's workshop, wearing a simple apron, helping a young girl or boy fix a broken toy or design a new tool. One afternoon, a young student asked him, "Sir, you are so rich and famous. Why do you spend your time here in the dust with us?" Leo smiled and knelt so he was eye level with the child. "Because I remember what it was like to have a dream and no tools to build it. I didn't get here by myself. I got here because I refused to give up, and now it is my job to make sure you don't have to struggle quite as hard as I did." He picked up a handful of soil and let it sift through his fingers. "Always remember," he said, "success is like a tree. The higher your branches reach toward the sky, the deeper your roots must grow into the earth. If you forget where you came from, the first wind will knock you over. But if you stay humble and help others, you will stand forever." Leo remained a hero, not because of the money he made, but because of the people he lifted up. And in that village, no child ever looked at the junkyard as a place of trash again. They looked at it as a place of stars.